Mercedes' major upgrade push, which has been taking place over the last 3 Grand Prix weekends, is set to continue in a fortnight's time at the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona, where they'll be bringing a brand new floor to the W15 as they chase performance to close the gap on the front teams in this season's 2024 F1 Championship. Over the last 3 events, Mercedes have introduced a brand new front wing, floor and front suspension to the W15, and this is all to do with curing the balance of the W15 through high, medium and low speed corners, where they've had in the past before these upgrades an issue where if they were getting good results in high speed, they would have really poor results in low speed, and all of these upgrades have helped balance that out so they have good speed performances in all 3 speed ranges. Now further upgrades are coming to the floor, even though they only just brought a brand new floor to the W15 a couple of events ago, and this is going to be debuting, as I just mentioned, at the Circuit de Catalunya. And of course, with that circuit being the most famous of circuits when it comes to getting the overall kind of picture of how a season and each individual car's performances are, it's a key moment in the season for all the teams to validate all their upgrades and see where they are in the pecking order. As generally what happens is that pecking order from Barcelona onwards doesn't necessarily jump up and down, except for a few exceptions with the likes of McLaren over the last couple of seasons. Now, of course, all of this comes on a very promising Canadian Grand Prix weekend where the team looked as competitive as they have at any point, I would say personally, throughout the hybrid era. And this last weekend was the first event where the car looked planted throughout the event, and that's only a positive sign for the team. Now, of course, that's a small sample size, hence why the team is bringing such a vast number of upgrades over the next few weekends, and this is all part of a wider upgrade plan that the team have set in motion since Miami, where they're going to be bringing upgrades weekend on weekend all the way up until the Silverstone Grand Prix, where they'll be bringing brand new side pods for that particular event. Now, a few other things to note when it comes to the Spanish Grand Prix weekend. Not only will they be bringing the floor, but I believe, as some other people do on Twitter, that they may actually introduce a brand new diffuser or tweaks to the diffuser that they currently have for that event. So it's going to be really interesting to see if anything else at all comes along to Barcelona, or if the main major upgrade for that weekend is going to be the floor. But nonetheless, with the performance that we saw out last time in Canada, where they looked very competitive in race conditions against the mighty Red Bull and McLaren teams, it's still an extremely positive performance and step in the right direction, and we're seeing this weekend on weekend on weekend. The performance gap between Mercedes and those in front of them have been gradually getting smaller and smaller, and I think that's a trend that is going to continue for the foreseeable future. Now, we don't know in terms of how many tenths or whatnot, how quickly that gap is going to close, but I think what we can expect to see is that trend continuing for the foreseeable, which is only good for the sport as a whole, because we want Lewis Hamilton up there, we want George Russell up there when he's not making stupid overtakes on the likes of Piastri as he did in Canada, because he literally just wanted to turn into a corner and act like he's not already in the corner before him. So yeah. But there is one thing we can say with certainty about the Mercedes team, and that is they're moving in the right direction with upgrades and with performance of the W15, having closed the gap considerably between the top teams and themselves. And another caveat of all of this is, of course, that they have now finally fixed the major correlation issues that they've had for the last 3 seasons, with all of the upgrades that they've had since the Miami Grand Prix, bringing them performance and a step closer to the front of the pack. And of course, for the first time in 2 years, this gives the team the confidence in their development upgrade path that they've set out for the next couple of races up until the British Grand Prix in Silverstone, where they will have their next huge upgrade package. And Toto Wolff is, of course, also extremely excited for what the following upgrades can bring to the car. starting in Barcelona, where that track is the pinnacle of what a Formula One car can do, and where you qualify in that race pretty much shows your performance against the best in the field. And it's always a case, if it's a dry qualifying, it's generally 2 by 2 by 2. And Toto Wolff had this to say on that very matter. So everyone at Brackley and Brixworth continues to work incredibly hard, and it's great to see their efforts rewarded with our first podium of the year. Now that is absolutely crazy to actually hear. I didn't even think of that the other day. It's been so awful this season so far. I hope that we can continue this positive trajectory. Looking ahead to Barcelona, it's a circuit that really tests a car. We are excited to go there and truly understand where we are performance-wise. So yeah, you may be wondering now, why is Barcelona where all the teams feel they get a true reading on the performance of the cars? Well, in the past, Formula One always used to do pre-season testing around that circuit because of its nature in the layout. It has a very slow speed section in Sector 3, and in the other two sections you have a mix of medium and high speed corners. And of course, with all the teams, they used to bring the first major upgrade package to this race during the European season. But things have changed and moved on since then. But one thing that is certain and still remains is that this is the pinnacle of a Formula One car's performance that teams measure off of. So as Toto Wolff stated, this weekend you're going to get a true read if it's dry for qualifying and the race, where all the teams stack up against one another. And of course that can shift depending on what teams bring upgrades and who doesn't. So for this weekend we saw Mercedes being the leading force in qualifying, with Max Verstappen saying he wouldn't have been able to catch them even if they'd all put a clean lap in, because all of them made mistakes, as you saw with George Russell's pole position, that his corner at turn 2 lost him a lot of time, and that was the case for a lot of drivers. And there's also one external factor we have to take into consideration with the performance of the Mercedes W15 this season. It's always performed much better under cool conditions. Now, as we move into the European season and summer is heading our way, conditions should be a lot warmer in Barcelona, and this is something that the Mercedes team will be able to, gauge off of their current performance, whether they've maybe fixed the issues that they have with maybe overheating and over wearing their tires in a race situation when the temperatures not only in the air but also on the tarmac are a lot hotter than that of what they experienced this weekend just gone out in Canada, where the track was extremely cold and wet pretty much throughout the entire race weekend. But all in all, it's been a very positive couple of race weekends for the team, and I do fully expect that to continue across the next 3 to 4 weekends as well, because with the upgrades continuously being brought to the car, the team should continuously, at the very least, stick and consolidate their position, both performance-wise but also in the pecking order of the top teams. And on the other side of it, if things go their way, they may even be able to further close the gap between the rest of the field ahead of them. So things are looking fantastic for the team finally in this ground effect era. And of course it can't come too soon for them. Right guys, that's the video. Hope you've all enjoyed it. If you have, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you all in another Formula One video this week.